Hello everyone, this is Matthew Miller with the ZDNet Smartphones and Cell Phones blog. Please pardon my voice as I have a cold going on right now after my most recent trip. But let's get through this with two new T-Mobile phones, the T-Mobile Samsung Galaxy S2 and the T-Mobile HTC Amaze 4G. So here is the hardware of the two devices, and I'll walk around both of the devices and give you an overview of the software and things like that. But I just wanted to say, to start off with, they both are very similar as far as internals go, right? They both have Android 2.3 Gingerbread loaded on them, 2.3.5, and then I'm not sure, I think it's 2.3.5 on the Amaze as well. They both have 16 gigabytes internal memory and micro SD card for expansion, the Qualcomm Snapdragon 1.5 gigahertz dual-core processor, DLNA, HDMI out with a MHL adapter, and a lot of similarities internally between the hardware. Now, the obvious difference you can see is there's some screen differences here. We have, I'll turn them both on here. We have a 4.3-inch QHD, which is the 540 by 960 on the Amaze here, and then on the Galaxy S2 we have a 4.52-inch WVGA, which is 480 by 800. So as you can kind of see, maybe it's clearer for myself than you, but it's a much higher pixel density. Well, not much higher, but high enough to tell a difference in fonts and things like that and clarity on the Amaze than it is on the Galaxy S2. It's almost too big of a screen in my opinion, but we'll talk about that in a second. One of the big differences between the two is that the Amaze 4G is 6.1 ounces and the Galaxy S2 is only 4.77. So even though it's a bigger display and a bigger physical device, as you can see it's wider, it's a lot lighter, which is interesting. So let's take a look at the, we'll start with the Galaxy S2. This is a phone that's been sold, I think it was announced at CTIA or no, Mobile World Congress is right, back in February, and it's been out on other countries for several months, and it's just now arriving in the US in different variants on all the carriers but Verizon. It's been announced for. So this is the T-Mobile version, which has a slightly larger display and a different processor. The other ones have a 1.2 gigahertz processor. This is a 1.5 gigahertz dual core. So the screen is large. The resolution I would prefer it to be higher. Some of the icons are bigger and the fonts are very nice, but could be a bit crisper. It's a TouchWiz device, as you can see here as we scroll through the interface. And that's nice, and as you can see over here we have applications. I'm not a huge fan of TouchWiz, but you can skin it with other things as well if you want. And it has all the typical T-Mobile stuff that we see in here, you know. Netflix is on there, Telenav, T-Mobile TV, quick video chat, Slacker's included. The same on both devices have the standard T-Mobile gear, which isn't too bad compared to some other carriers, and you can always hide it and get rid of it or whatever if you want. So looking at the hardware, we have the big display on the front. It has a front-facing 2 megapixel camera. Actually, both devices have front-facing 2 megapixel, which is much better than the VGA. And I did the Google Talk, not on this device, because from what I understand from Kevin Toffel, the Google Talk video on this device isn't working on the T-Mobile device, but it works on the AT&T Galaxy S2. So I have to test that out, because it does work on the Amaze. But 2 megapixel versus VGA on the front-facing is a nice improvement. And as you can see, I'm on edge here, even though it is a 4G device. This particular area of my house doesn't have 4G on this device. However, it does seem to work on the Amaze. And I've always found that HTC gets me a better signal than Samsung, so that could be the case here as well. It has these very bright capacitive touch buttons on the bottom here. As you can see, as I scroll, it gets very bright. And then over on the left side, we've got the volume rocker there. On the right side, we have the power button. That's it. There's no camera button or anything else like that. On the bottom is a micro USB port and the microphone. And on the top, we have... And then the back is much nicer than what I've seen before. You know, most of these Galaxies, like the Vibrant and things like that, have this really glossy black, slick back. This actually It's not soft touch, but it's actually a bit nicer. It's a rubbery feel. You can kind of hear that. It has some texture to it. Galaxy S2, it has an 8 megapixel camera with a single flash on there. And it's quite thin. And it, even though it's big and wide, it's so light, but it's not cheap light. It feels like carbon fiber, I guess, rather than glossy plastic. Very nice device that way. So it's a nice piece of hardware. And let's see if I have the price here. Sorry, I don't have the price in front of me. It's like $229.99 or $249.99 subsidized. But it's a Super AMOLED Plus touchscreen. Let's see what else about it. 1850 milliampere battery on it. And NFC, which both of these devices have NFC. This one also has Bluetooth 3.0 on it. So that's a look at that device. Now, let's go over here to the Amaze. And so this is the Amaze on, from HTC. And we can see here it has the latest Sense 3.0 interface. Also has capacitive buttons at the bottom. But see, they don't light up quite as bright and blind you when you're in a darker condition. And let's see here. As you can see, there's the Sense interface. And again, this has a front-facing 2 megapixel camera. It has the screen, which is the 4.3-inch QHD screen. And we come down to the bottom. That's just the release button, and the whole back comes off. What's kind of interesting here is I don't know if you can see here. I'll try to take some pictures, but the screen actually kind of sticks out from the edge. There's a nice bezel on this device that reminds me a lot of the Bold 9930 that had this metal kind of finished bezel. And as you can see on this release, let's see if I can do this release. This is the way that some of these, many of these HTC devices have been coming apart lately. So if you pull it apart, the actual back, the whole thing comes out, and then you have this, not just a cover. It's like the whole unibody part comes off, which is kind of unusual. And it pops back in there. So over on the left side, we have the micro USB port there for charging and connection. And on the right, we have a long volume button. And then what I really like, we have a dedicated record button and a dedicated camera button. And HTC was able to take what they've done with Windows Phone and from a totally, let's get this clean off, a totally black screen. If I press and hold the camera button, it launches the camera. And then the same thing, if I press and hold the record button from a totally off screen, it launches the camcorder. So bam, you can go right away and start taking pictures and video with not even turning your device on, just pushing and holding that button. And I really like that on this device. Up top we have the power button and the 3.5mm headset jack. And then on the back we have this a mix of soft touch and aluminum. We have a dual LED flash, 8 megapixel camera. Very nice form factor. It is heavier, definitely, than the Galaxy S2, but boy, it has to be one of the nicest feeling HTC devices I've ever seen. And I have to tell you, if they had this in Windows Phone, no hesitation, I'd be buying it. Excuse me. So it's Android, and let's see, is there anything different internally? Let's see, 1730 milliampere battery on it, and everything else internally pretty much the same as the Galaxy S2. One thing I will show is the camera, right? So this has that the excellent camera software like we saw in the MyTouch 4G Slide, I believe it's called. So if you go here, you can see that there's different modes, and they have a Smart Shot. They've got the panoramic, they've got the HDR, the burst shot, the night shot, action, macros, things like that, right? So if we go over here, let's see, I took some shots at the Sounders game last night. I should have some panoramic shots. Maybe it's not showing up, maybe I have to go to the gallery. Let's see. Sorry about that. There we go. Panoramic shots. So I took a couple panoramic shots last night at the Sounders game, and this is kind of a cool feature because you just push and hold it, and then as you rotate it, just starts to capture all of it. You don't have to do anything but one single push and hold. So the software is really something I enjoy on this device. I have to do a lot more testing on both of the devices, and I really don't need a new device, but boy, I am really close to picking up the Amaze 4G. It's just a beautiful piece of hardware, and I like the heft of it a bit better than the Galaxy S2. I know everybody says the Galaxy S2 is the best Android device ever, but I debate that at this point, and I'll be taking a look at both of them in more detail later. Thanks for watching.